On my screen, you have like the basic GUI code for a Robotics 101 program. So basically what this is going to do is going to communicate with the Arduino, and it'll also communicate like to make like this application show up so you can easily move the robot and stuff. And it might look really complicated, but I'm going to walk through step by step on what each line does. So these are just some of the imports you need. This like communicates with the Arduino with Python, and this is like what is used for like the GUI, as we like taught like a lot earlier this semester. And this makes it able so your Arduino program can run while this program also runs at the same time. And in order to communicate with the Arduino, you first need to initialize where the serial is. So for me, it's COM5, but you can find it by going to your Arduino program and going to Tools and just finding your board information and stuff like that.
Or Device Manager.
Or Device Manager, yeah, like Richie said. And then this is like some of the cosmetic things. It's like selecting dark mode. There's like dark mode and light mode. For the sake of this, I just did dark mode, and I made the color green for like the buttons I'm going to use. And then for this basically sets up your app that you're going to display on the computer and what dimensions that app will take up, and also the name of it. And these are like some of the buttons that you will see. So I'm just going to run the program. And you're going to see like this is what it looks like. So it just has an up button, a stop button, and a down button. And when you press up, I know you can't see it, but it basically shows like the motors turning upwards. So it goes forward, your whole robot, and there's a stop button that stops the entire robot from moving, and the down button, which makes it go in reverse. So this will be helpful when moving your robot. You can also probably make it so it goes like rotating and stuff like that, but you have to implement the methods for it. So in order to do this, I can show you the Arduino program. This basically initializes where those motors are being placed in. For our demonstration, we have it in place in pin 2, 3, and 4. And these are the different phases that each motor has. I kind of forgot what phases mean, to be honest.
So I'll explain this part.
Yeah.
So basically, you have pins 2, 3, and 4, which are PWM pins, which signify to the motor how fast it's going to be going from 0 to 255. 0 being like stop, 255 being max speed. And it's a PWM signal because it's going to be a pulse width modulation. If you're not sure what that is, just search it up and you'll see that it's like a square wave that changes width as you change its signal. And it's just a more efficient way of sending data to, I guess, like wherever you're trying to send it to. And you have phases, which is like those, like on your Teensy, you won't have as high of these numbers, like 52, 50, and 48. We're using Arduino Mega just for this demonstration. But for your Teensys, you'll have dedicated GPI pinouts, and Andy can probably help guide you with that. But the phases just control which direction it is. If it's high, it'll go in one direction. If it's low, it'll go in the other direction. And in combination with on and off from the PWM, you get forward, backward, and at what speed you want to go to. And then, what does that say? I can't see it from here. User input.
Oh yeah, that's like my code.
Oh, okay.
So for the user input, so like in order for the Arduino program to communicate with the Python program, we gotta have some user input to make sure like it can communicate from like the different applications. So we first need to start up our serial like we usually do for Arduino programs, so it can communicate with the computer. Then in the loop, I make it so it reads from the serial to read like the data coming into it. And if it equals like certain like symbols, like for this one I put like this character is 0, I guess is O, is lowercase o, then it will basically set like the PWM, like motor 1, motor 2, motor 3 to make it move forward, and it'll put it to high, which means it's going forward. And you can see it uses the variables initiated over here with phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 for the different motors.
So what that's doing is just like, it's calling the motor, it's saying digital write. So write to what motor? Write to motor, what phase is it going in and how fast. Wait, hold on, one second. Something feels a little bit off. Phase. Wait, I can't see something. So analog write. So analog write PWM1. So that's saying connect to motor 1 and set it to max speed 255. Next line says digital write, and it's just saying to phase 1. So it's going to phase 1, that variable name, which is connected to the direction of motor 1, and it's setting that to high. So it's saying max speed forward and forward direction, and it's just saying the same thing for the next couple of things like PWM2, PWM3.
Yeah, and basically it takes in this symbol, and in order to like communicate that, what I have in like the Python program is when you press the up button, this is like the method for it. And basically we'll write to the serial and just send this O, and so it'll communicate with the Arduino program for it. So I have it for O, B, X. I just chose random characters. It's probably a more efficient way of doing that, but yeah, just box. And then I initiated some of these buttons. So basically, this looks complicated, but basically it's saying, oh, I want this button to be on the app. You want it to be this width and height. And this is just like if you want to make it like a border width or something like that to make it look fancy. This is the name that goes on the button. And basically what this command thing does is that when you click this button, it will run whatever method it is. So for the up button, it will just run this up method over here, as you can see over here. I just copy pasted that basically like 3 times, and I had this like a little place thing, so it knows like what X and Y coordinates to put like the button onto like the application. And for here, this is like a bit of a complicated part. So basically, this is where you get like the data to like read from the Arduino, but that's like a more complicated step. But as of right now, for like just making your robot move forward and stuff, you just have to worry about like the stuff at the top over here. And yeah, and for like the rest of the Arduino code, so inside of this loop, we have this one, which basically makes it so the robot goes forward. And then you have X, which makes the robot stop. So basically over here, you can see that instead of 255, you put it to 0, so you want the motors to stop. And then for B, it's like basically the same as O, but because we put it at low, it goes the opposite direction, so it'll move backwards. But yeah, that's basically it.
Yeah. And if you want to modify the Python code so you have more control over the speed, you can also send other information, like not just like, oh, if it sees an O, set it to this condition, but you can maybe also make a series of data points like O 125, X 125, and B like 25. So therefore, then you can just have it like split that up and send it and update each of those motors with the speeds, so then you can have more control over it. But for the purposes of this, it's going to be kind of where there's some limitations in how well you can control it. It'll be buttons. In the future, you might want to implement a joystick to update it dynamically, but for now, it's just going to be hard like buttons that you would send, like go forward, stop. Maybe go forward a little bit more, stop. And you'll have to just kind of control it a little bit more roughly, crudely for now, right? Mm-hmm. But they can definitely like send like a stream of data and like string tokenize it maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, that's basically it. Should I just like stop the recording?
Yeah, I mean, does anyone have, before you stop the question, does anyone have questions?
So how do the two, like there's the Arduino and then there's the VS code, how do they connect to each other?
Yeah, basically they read from the same serial. So like Arduino, you see over here, initializes the serial, right? And basically what the Python code does is like we import the serial library and we initiate it over here, and I told it like where it's connected to for my computer and to the Arduino. So when I like write to the serial and do this, it basically sends a signal from my application over here to the Arduino program running over here.
Okay.
So let me try and explain it a different way.
Okay.
So Arduino basically gives, there's some technical terms. There's firmware and there's software. Natasha's Python code is the software that's running like the interface kind of code. But you need to give the like raw like equipment, like the Arduino side of it, some base code that it has some fundamentals to react to. Like if I sent you to a different part of the world that you didn't speak the language to and you had no translator, you can think of the code, the Arduino code, as being your translating guidebook, so that when people try to talk to you, right, you can understand what they're saying. And being able to talk to someone, you can think about that as your serial communication, just being able to talk to someone. Another way is like Arduino has a notepad and Python has a notepad. They share the same notepad, but they don't see each other. So Arduino can see on the notepad that Python wrote, oh, and then it can be like, oh, I react to that. And then Arduino can also send some data to Python, and it can also check for like, oh, I see an X, and then I'll react to that. So there's firmware and there's software, and Arduino side is the firmware where you kind of burn that onto the microcontroller. The microcontroller is dumb in the sense it can only keep redoing a certain task given to it many times. Otherwise, if it's too complicated, you'd use a higher processing like microcontroller, like a Raspberry Pi, or like a Jetson Nano or something like that. But yeah, it needs it needs firmware, and that's what the Arduino is doing. They communicate through this joint network, like this joint notepad, that is called Serial, but it's like a virtual notepad, and it's kind of weird because Serial only lets one thing connect to it directly. But that's like a future topic, because it's like really annoying to talk about, honestly, serial connections. But just think about it as a notepad.
But like when that blue cord isn't plugged in,
Yeah.
the robot will be moving. Won't they be unable to like share the notepad?
That is true. And for now, we would tether it. We'd tether your like robot to like we'd just make a really long extension cord
Okay.
for now. But I see where you're going, and that's where you would use like Bluetooth,
Right.
and you can actually set up a virtual like Bluetooth serial. You'd actually just like it's something that we haven't figured out yet fully, but it's possible with Bluetooth to
Yeah,
set
it's
up a
pretty
serial
complicated,
communication.
but yeah, it's possible to do it wireless.
Yeah, that's like our goal, but I don't know if we're gonna get there in time.
Yeah, maybe not by the end of the semester, but if we figure it out, then we can
Yeah.
show it.
But yeah, good question. Any other questions? Okay, so you did a good job, Natasha. Okay, you can stop the recording.